Good evening, gamers. Have you ever wondered what happens when two people who ask questions on podcasts sit down with one another to talk? Well, stick around and find out. Tonight, I have the privilege of being joined by Jeff Jones from RPG Ramblings Publishing and Podcast. There we go again. He is currently running a Kickstarter for Gary's Appendix Omnibus, which compiles the first 6 issues of Gary's Appendix into one killer hardcover. You can find out more about it and back it at the links down below in the description. Thanks so much for joining me tonight, Jeff. I'm psyched to have you on. This was commanded by Luau Lu, so I had to make it happen.
We have to do what Luau Lu says, yes.
That's right.
In fact, he's made me an offer I can't refuse, so I guess I'm going to Texas. But no, thanks for having me on. I don't normally, I'm very bad about marketing my stuff. I'm very bad about going out and hawking my wares, and I really appreciate that, when somebody says, hey, you want to come on? It's like, yeah, I do. That would be a good thing.
It's funny. I was just talking with someone about this the other day, too. I think it's a thing with all creatives that we just don't like to self-promote. And it creates such a weird feeling of being like, hey, look at me. You know what I mean? And I don't know if it's the same for you, but that's what it is with me, is like, I don't like being that guy. It's like, woo, look at me.
Yeah. So, it makes me realize that what I would really like to do is be able to have hire somebody to do all that. I'm just not the level to be able to have somebody do all that.
Someday, hopefully, we'll both get there. We can have our pitch guys that we send out to do everything for us.
That day is coming. I feel it in 2027.
All right. Put it on the calendars, folks. In 2027, we're both going to have our pitchmen. I like it. So one of the first things I always like to ask people, I'm going to phrase it a little bit differently with you, is what were some of the first games that you remember playing that really pulled you in and kept you into the gaming world, like Michael Corleone getting sucked back in, that just wouldn't let go?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I started out with the Moldvay, but I've played quite a few different games. So my DNA is Morrow Project, Gamma World, D&D, Chill, Champions. I mean, all of that. So I've spent probably our high school years, we just played everything and anything. Then, like a lot of people, they call it the deep freeze, or, there's like a decade most all of us have kind of went away. And I came back playing Champions with my son. But then I've also picked up newer games along the way. So I love the old games of old, but I also love, things like Cortex Plus and I also love the Free League system, the Year Zero engine. So
yeah,
I really do. I love gaming mechanics, and I really love how various games are able to implement a certain feel based on mechanics. But I think a lot of people lament about, that the coast isn't going in the direction that they want or giving the products they want. But man, we live, in a time that's a true panacea. Like, I don't know what anybody's complaining about.
No, it is like we have the all-you-can-eat buffet of games. It's fantastic, because for me growing up, it was limited to whatever my brother played. Because he was 11 years older than me, so I kind of I learned from him. Everything that I ever played, I learned from him. And then about 2003.
So what did he play though?
He was a D&D guy. He was a big board game guy too, like Axis and Allies. We developed a thermonuclear risk where we used push pins on the board to represent the nuclear weapons. And then I wish I could. I was so young that I can't remember what it was that actually launched the nuke, so to speak. But yeah, and then you would just drop the dice or whatever on the board, and it would wipe out everybody's armies. And
so what's interesting, do you remember the comic books? They had those ads in I think the early 80s, Reagan administration put out about the Star Defense, the Star Wars shield. Do you remember that? And they'd just be one page, and it would show they take a lid and drill holes in it. So first they throw a bunch of like dice on the map and show how the nukes would destroy the US. And then they put this thing over and they dropped it, and only a handful of dice hit the map. And I'm thinking, I don't know why they're trying to propagate, send out this propaganda to kids.
But I was thinking comic books.
And I'm looking, I'm like, nukes are still hitting. Like, does this really matter whether 100 or 1,000? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. It's funny because now I'm wondering if he got that idea from the comic books.
I don't know, but when you said that, it brought that image to mind. So
that is too funny. So yeah, but he liked to play, Risk, Axis and Allies. There was another board game, you might know this one, that had a plastic, I cannot remember the name to save my life, but it had plastic legs and a clear top that sat over the game board that you would put the helicopters and planes on.
No, we've never played anything like that. That sounds fantastic.
I wish I could find someone that knew what that game was. If you're listening out there and you know what it is, drop it in the comments, because I want to find this game, because the memories tied to it and my brother. He unfortunately passed away in 2003. And I quit game. That was my decade away from gaming, was all of 3.5, because it came out in 03, I believe. And yeah, and I got back into it about 2016 and just flew with it since then. So
so if you find that game in the rule set, you could 3D print your game.
Yeah, it would be great to be able to do that. Just print a bunch of helicopters and airplanes and have them everywhere. So with you being creative, were you always coming up with adventures as a kid and stuff like that? Or is it something that came about like later on in life for you?
Oh no, I mean, my whole childhood was imagining living in different worlds, very much the Calvin and Hobbes, with Calvin imagination on the planet. I mean, I was Captain Kirk, I was G.I. Joe, I was stomping home my way home from school like a 300-foot giant and looking at the terrain below. And so no, it's always been there one way or another, I think. But I think it's happened is, as I've gotten older, it's become more focused. So I spent a lot of time. I spent probably about 10 years pretty strong in photography, and with that route, I also did some freelance work for an offshoot of Guns and Ammo, doing photo shoots for their special interest publication. So yeah, what sort of shifted, I think, for me was strangely enough, was the advent of zines, where the concept where you could just take a piece of paper and fold it in half. It blew my mind. And all of a sudden I could do something that's small and contained, and my brain could at that moment say, yeah, I could actually do something with this, rather than some sort of some large 8.5 by 11 300-page book, which is daunting.
But that's kind of what you're doing now, at least.
It is
kind of cool.
It is, but when I started out, I decided to redo the Caves of Chaos. So what I did was I drew the maps. I did my own hand stitching of the binding, and I just started with or taking. The other thing I would do is I'd take rules. So I'd have books that I thought were great, but certain rules were very difficult to either understand or I wanted to supplement. So I started putting them in the zine format and copying and pasting them and reformatting them. So yeah, and then everything from that's just been an iteration to something new. Pretty much every time I do a project, I do something new.
Very cool. And speaking of projects, I just got this unbelievable mail call from you the other day, and I love this book.
Well, thank you.
And Zach did a fantastic job on this. And then there's the Tower of Six.
Yes.
Which, if folks, I got to make sure I put your website in the description so folks can get there and check out all of your wares. I know I put the Kickstarter link in there, but I'm not sure about the website. So When did you start RPG Ramblings as a podcast? And then how did you transition into or expand into publishing? Was it kind of a natural progression?
Well, it started out where there are questions to creators that I was always interested in hearing, that I wanted to be given to creators, but I never would hear that. And so I tried to work my way into somebody else's podcast and arrange for their programming for them, but it didn't really work out. So I thought, you know what, I'll do my own podcast. And so, and the people that I early on were just, we're content creators. And so so I'm assuming it's the same with you. I mean, you started this 3D printing business. How long's that been going?
Oh boy. Technically, I started it back in 2018.
Wow.
Well, I had some health issues, so I kind of sidebarred it for quite a few years. COVID, I was ready to start it back up, and then COVID happened. So the supply chain just crashed,
Yes.
as everybody knows. And I'm like, well, there goes that idea. And last year rolls around, and I'm looking at printers. I had donated all of my printers to the local STEM program that I had at the time. And I saw something I wanted to print, and I was like, well, crap, I don't have a printer. So I went and I bought a new printer. And then I'm like, I got the itch. It was just like 1 became 2, then 2 became 3, 3 became 6, 6 became 10. And now I've got half of my basement full of printers that my landlord allows me to run down there. Bless her heart. And yeah, so it's basically been since about September that I really rebooted things. And it is so much fun.
So it's one thing to like print things, but to the idea of like making a business and what things to do and marketing and tying yourself with products. I mean, that's not, there's no guide to that, really, is there?
No. See, this is funny. I called it. I'm like, we're going to end up asking each other questions. So folks, this is what happens. This is great. No, it is a lot of going off of gut instinct, honestly, of like, I think this will sell, so I'm going to pick up a license for this company's minis and see how they do. And so far, I've gotten very lucky and been very blessed with how things have gone. So,
well, excellent.
yeah.
And so what I found is a similar thing, but with creators, we're all in this for the RPG industry. We're all in the same boat, and we're not competitors.
And no, everybody's friends. That's the
yes.
beauty of it. And it's like the rising tide lifts all ships concept.
Yeah.
Totally applies to the RPG industry. And that's what I love about it. Because I spent a decade working in disc golf, and it was not like that at all. It was like the Hatfields and McCoys with like course ownership, like course owners and disc companies and stuff like that. And I come over to this, and it's like this big love fest compared to disc golf. And I'm just like, this is awesome. This is what I've been looking for.
Yeah. And I think the thing is, I mean, we're all trying to succeed. We all have struggles. We're all trying to do things, but we're all, welcoming. And you're right. It's in over time. I think once I started to come up with started to actually develop product, I got to call it something. So then I just didn't know what to call the company. So I just figured just making an RPG Ramblings, just, since I was already kind of a quote unquote known item, I would just carry on with that name.
I did exactly the same thing. So it's really funny because I had Games with Dave doing my interviews, and then I'm like, well, I came up with a few names, and I'm like, well, dude, you've already got yourself branded out there as Games with Dave. So just go Games with Dave 3D Prints. And
it works about anything that is related to a game.
Yeah. It could be Games with Dave board games, and even with you, RPG Ramblings, it's like it can be about talking. It could be about writing. And I think I should have the rambling title, though, because I ramble to no end.
Well, see, the beauty of the reason I came up with that name, one of the reasons was that I figured that that whatever I talked about, wherever the conversation went, it was okay, because on the tin it said ramblings. Like, even if it goes into movies or whatever, it's okay because whoever's getting their sign up for a rambling.
See, that is perfect. I feel like when I do get people that watch live, when I dive into like baseball topics or movie topics, you can at times will just watch that view count go do 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 because I've got it specifically as games. I'm going to call it Games with Dave and Ramblings or something. I'm kidding, but
You can take it. In fact, there's a podcast called I can't believe I forgot it at the moment. They're British podcast, and in his at the beginning of his podcast, he would say, "Ramblers, let's get rambling." And so that was the Grognard podcast. That's what it's called. So I kind of I think got that. So I stole from him. You steal from me. It's all okay.
So where we're talking about rambling, I don't know about you, but I always have to have I've got 2 sheets of talking points hanging here because my ADHD is so bad that if I don't have my list of talking points, I can either A, stare at the camera and completely forget what I was talking about, or B, just go off on tangents that have nothing to do with the question I asked.
Well, not to set you off course here, but one thing I've noticed is I don't have the HD part, but I think all of us suffer in the RPG creative sphere. We all suffer from a bit of at least attention deficit disorder. Yeah. And I've asked multiple people, and they all agree that they are probably somewhere on the spectrum.
Yeah. Yep. That's another one too that is absolutely true. So you've got Gary's Appendix going on.
I do.
The Omnibus. And dude, this is a jam-packed book.
It is full of jam. And I packed it full.
It's full of jam. If I read right, you've got over 30 essays and over 30 different monsters and even more stuff than that, like including adventures.
No, there's no adventures with this.
No adventures.
No. This started. So the seed of this. I won't take you all the way to the beginning, but
feel free to. I would love to hear it from the beginning.
Well, I mean, originally I had an idea of doing getting academics. Originally, what I was thinking is doing theme books on I was figuring doing theme books on like a certain culture at a certain time period. So you could say like Manoa at whatever 300 BC or whatever. And then it would be a zine that would contain, I'd have like an academic write it, but it would be everyday, it would be useful information for bringing a setting alive for RPG games. So, philosophically, like cultures are different. Like, what is a good person? It varies from culture to culture. There's not really one idea what is good or what is the what does it mean to what's the ideal thing to be as a person, or view of like leadership or nobility, or how religion comes into play in people's lives. Like, what does it mean to be a religious person in whatever culture they're dealing with? So we kind of treat D&D as religion is kind of not really much of anything, but the idea is that there's probably certain aspects of life that people would be doing that may kind of flavor the setting and not necessarily be anything that's like thou shalt, but what does that look like for a person to live in that? I mean, I don't know if you've ever watched like or read the Iliad, it's like Achilles and such. Like, their attitudes are they're kind of weird. They're kind of different. And what's moral and what's not moral it's different. But I thought that would be kind of cool, but that kind of flaked out. And I also was thought about doing a bestiary. And so I decided at the last minute just to put the two together and get people to write articles. So the idea is that for the bestiary portion, that would go through the OS or the OSE SRD. You know, they're full of like boring creatures, right? Dryad, camel, elephant, you know, whatever, and griffin. And it's like, yeah, these should be exciting creatures, right? I mean,
right.
So my attempt to do is to go back and not so much create like, okay, let's get 7 varieties of camel. We have the trebuchet carrying camel. We have the flamethrower version of the camel. We have the extended, you know, water capacity carrying, you know, camel. I don't know. Let's look at like mythology. Let's look at history, or let's look at maybe I just come up with some stuff and find out ways of making those things interesting or gameable in our way, and then that they're not just just something that, you know, is just there to kill. You know, it's like, maybe mythologically speaking, if you see a certain thing, it may mean a certain thing, not just that, you know, if a griffin's there, mythologically speaking, you know, it could mean that it's guarding a land that's filled with gold, or a river filled with gold, or it could be guarding an ancient city, or a temple of a god. You know, those are all implications, not just it's a griffin. So that's the sort of stuff. Or going back through even uses of certain animal parts, like I guess mostly I've been writing about the griffin. The griffin, their claws are supposed to, according to mythology, detect poison.
Interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah. So it's like, and when people actually had what they thought were griffin claw goblets or drinking vessels, but people were using antelope horn. So then you have people, you think about this. This is like fun stuff. Like, you could work something of this into a game, you know, with the, with the, you know, how important it is, or, you know, switching out cups so that somebody can't detect the poison. I mean,
right.
You know, it's kind of fun. Or maybe your characters are charlatans, you know, you find the antelopes, you know, and then somebody realizes this looks a lot like a griffin talon.
The grift is on. The great griffin grift.
Yeah. So the thing is, I find that fun, and also the articles, a whole variety of articles, from a large group of people. And the idea is that all this is supposed to be, you know, the bestiary. You can, because it's the SRD, you can find stats for any system. So really, the writing is what matters. You can swap out, you know, Acolyte, you know, for any D&D system. And it's what the writing is that's important. But also the same thing with all the articles. The articles are not, even though this is written for OSE, there's really no mechanics in them. There's tables, but there's no mechanics. This really is other than the stat blocks in the bestiary, all the content is really, it's not tied to any system. Very
agnostic, it sounds like.
Oh yeah. But and then here's the thing, right? You could say this is system agnostic. This is stuff that kind of can make you crazy. You know, it's like, well, do I just not put, because if I put OSE in here, people are gonna think it's only for OSE. But OSR people will recognize it's OSE and will probably say, yeah, I can salvage it. But 5th edition people are going to bypass this completely. You're like, what's this? You know,
what's that old school stuff?
Yeah. So, you know, it's just kind of like, you know, you can't be everything. So you kind of, I guess, need to at least pick a hill and plant your flag on it, even if it's really not, you know, that much of a hill. But
I love it. I think you should go back and maybe even revisit having the, like, I just lost the word, the academics do something. That sounded really cool to me. And what's really weird, before you said Minoans, that was what I thought of. Like, oh, the ancient Minoan society. And then you said it, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah, there's still opportunity. Another thing also was the inspiration for this was hence the name Gary's Appendix, is the D&D original D&D, or the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide. And the idea is you could flip that open. I tell people that was our Wikipedia. You could flip that open to any page, and you're going to have something to read. And it may not be a cohesive body of work, but it's an interesting body of work.
Yeah. Oh man, as a kid, like I would Shanghai my brother's books without even thinking about it, and all of a sudden I'd hear, "Where's this?" And we had to hide it from my mom, which was the other part of the whole fun part of it. But I'd always get the smack in the back of the head and then give me my book.
Yeah, we had boredom on our side. So we would pour through that book. And I don't know if did you make the castles and calculate out the gold based on the number of walls and thickness of walls? And
I tried. I was pretty little, but it's like I still have like a bunch of the handbooks, like the Thieves Handbook and all that stuff. And oh, they're so good. And it's like, that was AD&D 2nd edition though, when those came out. So
yeah, you might be, how old are you, Dave?
I turned 50 in November.
Okay. So I'm 7 years senior to you. So there's
so you've got a slight edge on me with, because I got into it really with AD&D personally with 2nd edition. I've got my brother's AD&D Player's Handbook up on my shelf still. It's held together with a bunch of packing tape and everything, but I will never let that book go so long as I'm alive. So,
well, that's really neat.
Yeah, actually, I can't get to it because of my light. So, or else I'd pull it down and show you, because it glistens in the light from all the packing tape. But it was his book, and it's one of those things that I grabbed at one point, and I'm just like, this is never leaving my possession, and it never has.
Well, that's neat. Yeah, it's so really there's a lot of like nostalgia. So I mean, in a sense, I was trying to give a wink towards Gary's Appendix, or to the Dungeon Master's Guide, but not. We're definitely nothing to the. I mean, we're not attempting to replace it or make any claims to be on that level of the Gygaxian high plateau. So
no, but I know it's awesome, because I just, like I said, I've got the Tower of Six and everything here, and another book of yours, and I love your work, man. It's like, it is so good, and so don't sell yourself short. You make really awesome stuff.
Well, I'll tell you the strange thing about the tower, or about the Dark Visions. I was figuring I could at least make $4,500. I figured it could get to about 6,500. Was probably about. I thought that would be. I didn't think that would necessarily be the max, but that would have been a very good goal. And Zach came up. That whole thing was written in about a month. It was like, it really wasn't. It was like an inspiration as far as the writing. Just apparently just came out of him, and he was just on a roll, and he can crank stuff out when he's on a tear. And so he was just whatever mode he was in, he cranked that baby out, and did some play testing and did some editing. But the thing is, you just never know. And that thing with creativity, or with putting things out there, is it's a risk, right? Every time you negotiate with somebody to come out with a new line, you don't know what those miniatures are going to sell. You think they do. Well,
yeah, it can get scary at times. It's like, as I'm sure it is for you, that you probably sit there, you hit launch, and it's like, here we go. It's
well, just give you a little bit look in the behind the scenes. So I determined this is going to be a Smithsonian hardback, and it's going to have a ribbon. And so I was going to put an order in for 500 copies, and it's going to be over $8,000 in printing costs for those books. And so when I was ready to hit launch, on this, I really was not feeling the best. I was willing to eat. I have the ability because of the previous Kickstarter. I can take a hit, but still, it's like I didn't know how well this is going to do, right? Because it's you don't know, and so
No, it's. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no,
I
I'm just
told
saying
you
right early at this moment, I think I'm very close to having paid for. I'll be able to pay for all the printing, all the books. So the money, if it was to stop at this point, the money I would make would be on future sales of books. They'd all be paid for. But up until this point, I was not even at the break-even point.
Oh man. So we get our first. I was raised by a poor orc child. Says, cool. I'll check out the Kickstarter. I might give it a shout out on another channel. Thanks so
awesome.
much. So what are some of the, aside from like the terror of the costs incurred, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges and or pitfalls that you've had to leap over with expanding into publishing that you feel could help other new publishers, other people getting into publishing out there, I guess would be the way to say it.
So what I will say that to be successful and to have a business, because I mean, so there's two ways to look at this, right? You could say, I got this desire, I have this either a heartbreaker or I've got this adventure I want to do, and it's been on my mind for a while, and I just want to do this one thing and get it printed, whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that in itself is it's one thing. But if you're saying I want to be doing this, producing something 4 times a year or 5 times a year or 6 times a year, then it becomes something else. And so at that point, if you are, let's say it's an adventure you are doing, it's very possible you're the one doing the writing, you're the one doing the layout, you're the one doing the art, you're also the one that is going to do the marketing, and then you're going to be the one that's going to set up the Kickstarter, and you're going to be the one that sets up the backer kit. You're going to be the one that also is going to do the fulfillment, and you're going to be the one that's also going to be handling all the responses of people. I can't remember. I said marketing. You may want to do a marketing campaign. You're going to be the one that should be setting up, trying to get interviews or be interviewed by various people. You're going to be the one that's going to be putting out all the stuff on these Facebook groups, trying to gain interest. That's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of things to be doing. And so what will happen is there are things that a person's good at. There's a thing that they're not good at. And talking to Luau Lu, and we have kind of had a short discussion. When he has an idea for something, he wants to be the one to bring it to life. I mean, he wants to, from inception to birth, he wants the whole thing, right? Where me, it's getting the idea out there is the main thing. So for some people, they want to have their hands on the entire way through. They may not want every aspect, but as far as the writing and so forth, they want to be, they want that all to be theirs. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it will limit your limitations will be based on your output, and your output's going to be limited by all the things that you have to do in order to get something from inception to a physical reality into people's hands. So that's a long way of saying is there's some things you're good at. There's some things you're not good at. Find people that are good at the things that you're not good at and either work a deal out with them or pay them. And that's how you can start doing stuff on a little bit larger scale.
Very cool. Now, if I counted right, you're doing about one a month or every other month right now, roughly.
So Zach, I made a mention in about because he saw I have a board, virtual board, and I had a bunch of stuff on there. I think I have the stuff slots for 11 Kickstarters this year.
Wow.
And I said early on, I was like, Zach, I showed him my kind of general plan, because stuff I just kind of leave a little floating around, and then he's like, no, I think we can do 11. So I'm like,
wow.
Okay, Zach. Okay, Zach. So because of that, now I've got 11 plans. So right now, this is the third one this year, the third Kickstarter. But we're in April. So 3 Kickstarters, 4 months in, but it's going to be very tight to get the next one in and out too in a timely manner. But I'll probably do that it won't be a full 4 weeks.
But man, you get stuff out quick. I've got to say that, like, from the time the Kickstarter closed for Dark Visions to when I got it in my mailbox, I was like, holy cow. Like,
yeah. So in general, I do not kickstart concepts. When I go to Kickstarter, I almost always either have a proof copy in hand, or a proof copy is created during the Kickstarter.
And I think that's a great way of doing it, because there are so many Kickstarters I have gotten burned on that were concepts that people had that just never came to fruition. I shouldn't say so many, but there have been several that I have definitely had.
It stings, right?
Yeah, when you drop, like, when you're like, this is such a cool idea, and then you're like, I'm going to do the all-in pledge, and it's like, oh, wow, it's been 2 years. I wonder what's going on with this.
So, and I have a friend I don't think he's fulfilled. I think it's been over 4 years, and he's had a number of weird, bad things happen. And he's also had some physical maladies hit him. But really, truly, Kickstarter, I think at its heart, is intended for not to be a means of cash flow, but really simply, I think the real intent is for somebody to have an idea, and that people to back it and then bring that idea to life. But the fact of the matter is the further you're away from a development, the less likely people are to back your project. Yep. So if you can show a flip through of your product, or some layout stuff's done, you're a long ways away, or you're much closer to, you're more likely to get more people to back you than if you you're just like halfway done,
Right. And just throwing something out there and being like,
but the stress, I'll tell you, the stress of not having something done is tremendous. Because what happens is, so right now I've got the Denizens of the Blood Sands. So that one was in February. I'm not going to fill that one for a while, because I'm still waiting on all the art. But I let everybody know that it's waiting on the art. But if it's creative writing, and you don't have, like, say, a solid plan of where you should stop and how much words, you're going to find yourself in a situation where you may be tempted to short the project just to get it out. You know what I mean? It's like, it's very stressful to be under that gun, where creatively you're not, because delays can happen for a number of things. You can have writer's flake, you can have artist flake, you could have your layout person flake, you could get sick, you could just think you had it all figured out, then all of a sudden you get halfway through, and all of a sudden you get a block, and you're like, man, this wasn't a great idea. And I mean, who knows? I mean, people go through divorces, people have, whatever. I mean, you don't know. So it's safer to get it as close as possible before going to Kickstarter, before you pull that launch lever.
It sounds like it's almost like an insurance policy in a way.
Yes.
Having everything ready, just so that if, heaven forbid, like, life throws you a curveball, you're not like, whoa.
Yes. And we know life is full of curveballs. So
it certainly is. It certainly is. So what have you found has gotten easier for you over time, the more projects you do versus when you first started?
So we tend to talk about ADD a bit, right? And so when I had several projects going, I had to create some Gantt charts to be able to make sure I was where I need to be on different projects, different times. Because when you're working in the future, you can't just think about, like, if you're working on a mobile project, you can't just think about the project that's right now in front of you. You got to think about the one that's right now, the next one, the one after that, and the one after that one. And you got to get things in motion, so that, things move along. So I had to resort to a Gantt chart. There was a time where I had to almost do almost a day by day, like, what activities should I be doing for each one, because it started to get really kind of confusing. Where, I hate to say it now, I have to keep looking at my simple. It's really like nope. It's like it's the it's free form for Apple. I'm not sure if you know the app. It's just like stick it notes on a board. So
Yep.
so I'm able to look at that, and I'm able to pretty much in my head kind of keep track of where I'm at. Occasionally I have to stop, reassess for each one where I need to be. Then I'll create like a line item of things I need to do. Then I follow them in order. And about once a week or so, I'll force myself to make a list. But I think I'm better able to navigate stuff that's going on than I have in the past.
Very cool. Yeah, it can get tricky even with me, like with orders. If I get like a whole bunch at once, it's like, holy smokes, because you got to be able to get things lined up just right to make all the pieces fit the puzzle, so to speak. I guess
Oh yeah, well, my
that
wife
makes sense.
has been helping me out with the fulfillment, and that's been huge, because it may not look that complicated, but boy, the back end of, let's say, like Dark Visions, there's like every possible combination of items have to get shipped out.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so this one gets this one, this one, this one, this one gets this one, that one, this one, and a sticker, and this one gets this, like, so. Luckily, I've got myself pretty well over years. I've got myself kind of had that figured out, but having her help was tremendous. So I think definitely going back to the thing, finding the right people to help you, especially during those stressful things. And for you, it's like, in me, it's like you can ship the wrong thing. It's a very expensive thing to do wrong, especially if you do it
Yeah.
over and over again. You
Yep.
don't look very, if you miss orders, that's bad too. It's just, it doesn't make you look overly swift when somebody says, "Hey, where's my package?" You're like, "Oh, I didn't ship it yet." It's like,
Right. Well, I actually, it's funny that you say your wife helps, because my fiance helps me with everything. And she's able to be the one that when I get stressed out will grab me kind of by the side of the face and be like, "It's fine. Let's just focus." And it's like, okay. Because we actually do fulfillment as well. It's another little side project that we've started. And I've had a couple that had many items in them. And it's like, holy cow, like you were saying, of this one gets a sticker and a bookmark and a book. This one gets a book, a zine, a bookmark, and a postcard. And it's like, holy cow, you're just, and the Kickstarter sheets can be so confusing at times, especially, like,
so
until you get familiarized with
you
them.
don't do backer kit?
I don't run Kickstarters. We've actually done fulfillment. We started like a little mini fulfillment company. So
Oh,
people
so
send us their
somebody's giving
stuff,
this to you to do,
and they're handing off the sheet, and then I'm just like, the last time, the biggest one that I've done, we only had the Kickstarter sheets, not a backer kit sheet. And it was so confusing until I finally figured out, okay, it's got multiple columns for the same thing on Kickstarter. And then I just hit a bunch of columns and it became easy after that.
right? But that moment of like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, of like, why is this person getting 10 books? And it's like, oh, wait, they're only getting 3 zines and a book, but it looks like they're getting 10.
Yeah, it's and especially, especially when you start shipping like multiple items in bulk, like the scan sheets, and you can you can mess up a whole lot of packages at one time if you're not careful. But
Yeah.
so I think no matter how good you are, especially if you're doing something that's kind of larger, complex, having a second person there is definitely a huge advantage.
I wholeheartedly agree on that one. And I was raised by a poor orc child said, again, Jeff's a class act for doing Kickstarters, and that's what you should do on that platform.
Yeah.
And I agree, having everything almost done is the way to go. So, is Dark Visions, was that your first Shadow Dark project?
Yeah. So it started with, I had an idea, and so I said to Zach, "Hey Zach, I have this idea. I want you to do this. What do you think?" He's like, "Sure." And then about December, he says, "Well, how about instead of doing that, I do it for Shadow Dark instead?" Like, sure. It's like I thought, I don't have anything in Shadow Dark, and this is a good opportunity to experiment, because it's like you don't know until you do something. So yeah, in fact, I've to be fair, I've never played Shadow Dark, but Zach sure has, and so he was middle of playing it, and he was juiced up, and what I was wanting him to do is something as far as the cults, he's very much aligned with, and it worked out really well as far as finding the writer, and it was so engaged. It was pretty wild, that whole. I still don't think it's ever soaked in.
Yeah, like I've played Shadow Dark once. When I went down to TotalCon in Massachusetts, and a bunch of us got an Airbnb, and we sat up until 4 a.m. playing Shadow Dark, and I have never laughed so hard in my life at like torches going out and stuff like that, and you're just doomed.
I will say that Kelsey and company, I mean, she is like a class act. I mean, I've seen her deal with people just being weird, and she is an amazing person and creator. So I don't have necessarily much experience with it. I mean, man, what a wonderful person she is. And I'm so happy that, she's able to make such a success out of, some people say, well, this is not really new. Oh, she's doing this. Well, you know what? She put peanut butter and chocolate together in a way that nobody has before. She marketed it. She provided a product that just aligns with people's interest. And she's had a history of delivering great product. And, she's nobody deserves anything. We don't come to this world deserving anything, but I'll tell you what, she's putting the time and the effort and the opportunity, and everything that's happening is not because she's lucky. She's legitimately run a good business, has good relations with people, and promotes the daylights out of it. So I'm kind of excited about being part of this in that way.
So I'm trying to think. I feel like, is there anything we haven't covered with Gary's appendix that you'd like to talk about before I move on with anything else? Because I feel like I'm kind of all over the place.
No, I'll just say that, what's different, if people are wondering, they can get the original zines. You can also buy if you said, I don't really care about the hardcover, but I would like to have the zines, you can buy, I think the zines are packaged at a good price. The difference is that the zines, if you read through them, they progress from black and white to color. Formatting's changed. There's a lot of things that have changed, but if you get the hardcover, it is all formatted to be consistent. It's all in color art. So so if you just said, I just like zines instead, they're much more, your thing. You can also pick those up as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I want both the zines and the book. I am a completionist, and it drives my fiance crazy. Because it'll be like, oh, did you see this Kickstarter just came out? And they put out this limited edition copy of this. I've got to get it. And she's like, oh, boy. And
well, I shouldn't probably tell you this then, but I am going to, when I start ordering more copies of the earlier versions of Gary's appendix, I'm going to reformat the covers to match the later one. So,
Jeff,
but I'll tell you what, I get you a good deal, maybe even free.
Well, I appreciate that. Let me see. We just had. Says for the print bundles, there's only Fane of the Fly God included in digital. I don't want any digital stuff. I actually have a very hard time with digital stuff. I have really bad dyslexia. So if I'm looking at PDFs, there will be times that I can be staring at a PDF and it's almost like the page collapses on me, if that makes any kind of sense. So I can kind of like I love physical, tangible stuff anyway.
Yes.
I'm like a little gremlin when it comes to my books.
I like both. I like them for for different reasons. But I think they're for me. But yeah, it's as I've gotten older, I've gone back to more wanting hardcover copies. But I still enjoy the PDFs. So yeah, Fame of the Fly God, I'm not going to put in physical form. But I am coming out with a new, absolutely new version of Fame of the Fly God, hopefully later this year or next year. And it's going to be 150 pages. It's going to, this one I estimated it's going to be a really nice hardcover. I'm very, 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 very excited with what's coming out with that. But that's still ways down the road.
I am too. I will definitely be grabbing that as well. So.
Yeah, I'm going to play around with the format. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to try and give it a more of an older academic textbook style vibe on the inside, and we'll see if I can pull it off. I get these ideas. We'll see if reality really works. But it will be much more. There's going to be a lot more. There's going to be more margin space. There's going to be a little bit larger font size, more spacing, so it'll be more breathable, and it'll have writing along the side. So it should be very readable. It should be very enjoyable to read. It should be very easy on the eyes, and it should hopefully have a nice aesthetic.
I'm sure it will, man. Like, yeah, I could. I could throw flowers at you all night for everything I've checked out of yours. I think that's the right phrase. But so when you're not working on games, when you're not interviewing people, I know you said photography was a big thing for you. What else do you like to do for?
Well, this is going to open something up that may take us on a big tangent.
All right, let's go. I'm ready.
So about 2 years ago, a friend got my wife and I started playing disc golf.
Oh boy. Okay.
We play a lot of disc golf. A lot.
Nice. I can't play anymore, unfortunately. My knees are garbage. The last time I played, I was 1.5 miles out in the woods here in Maine, and my right knee dislocated on me.
Oh.
And I was with a friend, fortunately, and he helped me pop it back in. And all I will say about that part of it is he said that when we put it back in, he would have, if he believed in Sasquatches, the yell that I let out, he would have thought there was one out in the woods. And then I had to hike back out of there, like half leaning on him and with a big old Gandalf style staff stick that I had found on the ground. And I have not gone out and played since then. What do you like to throw for discs?
As far as brands go, it's all over the place, and I keep changing up. So a lot of times I'll find a disc and then I will sometimes just find it in the there's the virus, the Axiom virus. It's a
nice.
Well, I found it and I'm like, I don't like the color. I buy colors that are very bright, and then all of a sudden I started throwing it. It's like, oh my goodness, I can't live without this disc.
I just want to pop this up here. It says, what's the difference of the two print bundles at 105 and 145?
I'll tell you the truth, I don't know. I could look it up real quick. Because Zach, you talk about things that what you're good at and what you're not good at. I pay for somebody to set up my Kickstarters because let's see if I can. I think what's happened is one might be Gary. Let's see. Yeah, well, it varies with the putters. I mean, I pretty much stick with the Judge putter, and I also I like the fuse, but sometimes I'll play with the fuse for a while, but it's very gliding. Sometimes it gets me in trouble, so I get away from the fuse. I just picked up the Saint.
Right, good disc. The Judge is a great putter too. It's
Yeah, yeah, and so it just varies. It just varies. I probably tend to favor slightly overstable discs because, but occasionally, it seems like the understable disc can get me in trouble. So
You're good at that. As you've actually with understable stuff, you got to kind of pitch it down a little bit and have like a really smooth delivery with it. And which I never had. Like I was never any good. I just worked in the sport because I found it, thought it was really cool, and then got into it. And then one day someone's like, "Hey, you want to come work for me at my course?" And I was like, "Sure." And
yeah, it's
spent 10 years doing it.
well, the thing is, not to bore people with disc golf, but what I will say I urge everybody out there who can or who think they may be just go give it a try, because you can pick up a few discs for $30 and you can go play at world-class courses for free, but they're everywhere. These courses are everywhere. And it's a type of exercise, unless you twist your knee and dislocate it. Anybody can do it, really. If you can bend down, pick up a disc, you can play. And you pretty much always, even if you're not great, you're still going forward every time. So
Yeah,
it is a great, and also most of the time, 99% of the people out there are chill.
Yep. Now you want to hear the real kicker? Everything in Maine is pay to play. Like all of our courses have greens fees here. Yeah.
So I saw that. I kind of got that vibe with Wisconsin. I thought about going when I was in Madison, but I was like shocked for being such a liberal state. I would have thought they would have more access to stuff. But like I live around Peoria, and there are like Peoria. We've gone to Quad Cities. We've gone to Kansas City. Free courses everywhere. World-class courses here in Peoria area. So the difference between the print is Scoundrels of Brixton. The 145 includes so there's a sci-fi setting that I also wrote for Traveler / Cephas Engine, and so the 145 gives you also the Scoundrels of Brixton. I don't know if that helps make that decision. So yeah, it's but no, it's been good. So that's probably the main thing is that my wife. So my wife probably enjoys it more than I do. So there's nobody to say no, and so
it is fun though. It's like I wish I could still play. Like I think if like I hit the weights or something, like really worked my knee into shape, I could do it. But I don't know. I get so paranoid about my knee blowing out again in the middle of the woods.
Yeah, I tend to also I throw a little bit differently. I don't X step, so if you don't do the X step, you might be fine. But
I don't, and that's actually what I think did me in, is because I throw completely flat-footed, and I don't. And I like when my knee blew out, my foot just stayed pointing straight, and the rest of my body.
Well, I think I tore a meniscus playing disc golf, so I probably shouldn't be throwing all this medical advice to people. Need to do this because it's safe. But since I figured my other things out, it's fine. But I tell you, there's almost nothing more magical than seeing a disc released and just seeing its flight. Like there is something magical about the dynamics of flight interacting with wind and terrain, and that you just don't know. You see it. Sometimes you know what's going to do, and other times you're like,
How to do that?
Yeah, exactly.
So you actually just mentioned, oh geez, I just lost the name. Brixton.
Scoundrels of Brixton.
Scoundrels of Brixton being your traveler setting. And you've also got another one that I didn't put in my notes here. I'm going to see if I can get it before you tell me. I know it's Into the Lands of Madness.
No, Journey of the Madlands.
I was kind of close, and now I look like a jerk because I didn't have it in my notes. What does that cover?
So sometimes I do stuff that's just, you talk about gut feelings. And so what the Journey of the Madlands is a post-apocalyptic setting. So the very first one was intended to be kind of modular, like have different like locations, hexes, and have them written up. And they, I kind of give like a hex flower or sort that how they can interact. But the idea was different hexes that you could put in your game. And also, but the second time I decided, no, I really just need to aim at a setting. And so the idea was, which is crazy. So the rule set is OSE, but there's no OSE post-apocalyptic books out there, right?
But there are now.
Well, there is. There was no rules for anything. There's no rules for guns. There's no rules for, there's no, but I just thought, I just want to do this thing. So that's my first Kickstarter that I did with a group of people. The second time around, I decided to focus, and I also put some rules, some OSE rules into that setting. So it's, and the idea for the second issue was that you start with a town, and the town is I think it's like Riverton. Not Riverton. I can't remember the name now. It's like having kids. Once you have them, you forget their names. So so it's a town where it's got its own political turmoil going on, its own NPCs. There's a bunch of like tension wound up in different spots. And then as you get further out, it starts getting weird. And the idea is that you start with, in my mind was, it was have you read the Legion of Gold Gamma World, the module?
I have not. I'm writing that one down though.
Yeah, I think it's the City of Horn, or is it? I think it's, or is it Ward? I can't remember. But anyway, the idea is you start out in the city, and that's where you provision. That's where that's where you start out. It's it's a place where things can happen. In the Legion of Gold, there's not really anything going on in the town. They have NPCs, but there's not really anything going on in town. But then you go out from there and you adventure and you come back. You adventure and you come back. So I wanted to create something similar to that, where the idea is that you could start out with a base and things are normal. When I say normal, like things are, the city itself, you could put into like a moral project setting, or it's not like weird stuff. But as you go further out, it gets weirder. And so, and that was, the intent. It's been a fun project, but it's definitely, it's definitely took a lot of writing on my part to get that done.
I'm gonna have to check it out because it sounds super cool to me. Like, I've got to check it out. So
yeah, it's so, and also have creatures in there. There's a bestiary, so the bestiary works with old school essentials, and it's like I say, everything I've done has been like an iteration. So there I had limited art. So the first time I had an artist who was on board. Second time I didn't, who was part of the project. We all just kind of did our own thing. The second time around, I did pay for a cover, but all the interior art I had to. And well, even the previous one, when you don't have an art budget or much of an art budget, you figure out means of making that work, and there's ways you can do it. So a lot of people lament about the expensive art, but there are ways you can kind of make things work as far as with graphic representations and existing pictures.
Yep. Well, that was all I had, my friend. But before we go, I would like to let you kind of give your pitch for the Omnibus and get more people to jump on this totally awesome project.
Okay, this is my pitch. As I'm making it up as I go, I would say that so the people, there's a lot of friends and people I know that have contributed to these articles, and there's a lot of variety in the types of articles there are. So some stuff is pretty serious, talking about governments, to articles about dragon poop. So it's not all highbrow, it's not all lowbrow. Some stuff is very inspirational. Some of those very narrative. Some stuff is there's some stuff that's like using dice drop tables to generate. So I think there's probably something in there for everyone. And I think in general, people will find that the articles in the bestiary to be, if not directly usable, at least very inspiring for uses in your game.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I have had an absolute blast. I would keep you on here for another hour just talking about disc golf and games, but I fear that people would be like, "Oh, they're talking about disc golf again." But folks, if you enjoyed our conversation tonight, think about giving it a thumbs up, maybe subscribing to the channel. You should also head over and subscribe to RPG Ramblings YouTube channel. Jeff does a great job over there. Yeah, I've got to have you back on so we can talk about your podcast.
Yeah,
anytime.
Anytime you want to have me on, I'd be more than happy to put you on the schedule. So it's not a problem at all, Dave.
Awesome. And thanks for tuning in. I was raised by a poor orc child. Thank you so much.
Yes. Your parents did well. You might have been poor, but you've been raised well.
All right.
Steve Martin would be proud.
He would be. One of my favorite movies, by the way.
It's amazing.
All right, folks. Well, have a wonderful evening, and we will catch you next time. Have a great night.
Take care.